Human rescued a wounded alien and had no idea she was the Regent's cherished companion. Crimson stained Eli's hands as he hurried through the dim corridors of Outpost Helios, clutching the small, wounded alien in his arms. He ran, feet echoing against steel grates, breath sharp in his chest, every step a silent plea that no one would see him. The being he carried bled freely, silver fur matted and sticky, intricate geometric patterns on her side, shifting and pulsing with every labored breath. Despite the pain, she managed to curl her delicate fingers around Eli's wrist, her enormous dark eyes meeting his, full of both terror and a fragile, searching trust. "Hang on," Eli whispered, trying to keep his voice steady as the outpost's battered lights flickered overhead. "Almost there. You're safe now." He darted into the maintenance deck, navigating the narrow, cluttered passageways he knew better than anyone else aboard Helios. Only a single sanitation drone floated in the corner, whirring anxiously as it registered the trail of blood. "Warning, biohazard detected," it chimed. "Override," Eli snapped, elbowing open the door to his cramped lab. "Not now." The room was a mess of outdated equipment, half-repaired hydroponics, and hastily stacked supply crates. He set the alien gently on the exam table, hands trembling, unable to stop marveling at her form even in the urgency of the moment. She was barely 3 feet tall, limbs impossibly slender, the silver of her fur catching the light in shifting waves. Small, pointed ears twitched at every sound. Her face, so unlike a human's, was dominated by those vast liquid eyes, watching him with a mix of fear and hope. "Let's see what we're dealing with," Eli murmured, activating the bioscanner with a swipe. He pressed a gentle hand to the worst of her wounds, a deep, cauterized gash along her left side, edges seared but still oozing blood. The scanner's lights flickered, scrolling through endless databases. "No match found," the machine announced after a long moment. "Closest analog, Selenian morphid, sentient silver-furred beings from the Perseid cluster." She was no animal, Eli knew. Even in agony, the patterns in her fur shifted with her emotions. Anger flared red, panic shimmered blue, trust lingered in gentle gold. And she never took her eyes off him. He reached for the antiseptic, speaking softly. "This is going to sting, but I promise, I'll be careful." She flinched as the cool gel touched her wound, baring sharp little teeth in a soundless hiss, but didn't pull away. Eli slowed his movements, keeping his voice low and calm until her breathing eased. He loaded a hypo with a mild analgesic, hesitating only a moment before injecting it just beneath her fur. "It's okay. You're safe here. I'm Eli. I won't let anyone hurt you." Her gaze softened and she squeezed his wrist once, as if in understanding. As he cleaned and dressed her wounds, he couldn't help but note the intricacy of her anatomy. Twin hearts beating out of sync, a lattice of dense neural tissue running down her spine, a second set of lungs pulsing quietly under the first. The bioscanner flickered again, registering a subtle psychic resonance, barely detectable, but present. Someone had tried to destroy her, and not by chance. Hours blurred by as Eli worked, hands steady, mind racing. He finally slumped at his desk, exhaustion dragging at his eyelids. The alien, bandaged and breathing easier, slept inside a containment pod, its transparent shield glowing faintly blue, isolating her from the outside world. Eli watched her chest rise and fall, tension in his body easing at last. Suddenly, the klaxon blared through the station, an unscheduled arrival, Sovereign's envoy, had docked. Security lockdown initiated. The lights shifted to red. Eli's heart hammered. The alien stirred inside the pod, panic flickering in her eyes as she reached out, palm pressed against the barrier. "It's okay," Eli murmured, his own hand meeting hers through the cold glass. A wave of emotion hit him. Raw fear, aching gratitude, a desperate, fragile hope. It flooded his mind so suddenly he gasped, blinking away tears he hadn't realized were forming. Before he could say more, his comm crackled. "Dr. Eli Winters, report to the docking bay. Immediately," Officer Brandt barked. Eli scrambled to his feet, voice shaking as he whispered, "Stay here. I'll be back. I promise." The alien watched him go, her face pressed to the pod's surface. He hurried through the corridors, heart pounding, every instinct screaming that he was in over his head. The docking bay was tense, envoy officers in black uniforms waiting, faces hard and unreadable. Brandt stood to one side, arms folded. One officer stepped forward, cold blue eyes locking onto Eli. "We're missing cargo. Sensitive cargo. You understand the consequences of non-compliance." Eli forced himself to meet their gaze. "I haven't seen anything unusual, just routine shipments. If there's a problem, maybe maintenance." "Don't play games," another officer cut in, voice icy. "You'd know if you saw it." He kept his expression blank, swallowing the panic clawing at his throat. "Sorry. Wish I could help." They stared at him for a long moment, the air electric with threat. At last, Brandt waved him away. Eli all but ran back to his lab. The containment pod was empty. "Lyra," he whispered, voice cracking. He scanned the cramped room, searching for any sign, dread squeezing his chest. Then he heard the faintest rustle from beneath his desk. He dropped to his knees, peering into the shadowed gap. There she was, trembling but alert, enormous eyes fixed on him. Eli smiled, relief overwhelming. "Hey, it's okay. You did good. You're safe." He extended a hand, palm up. She hesitated, then inched forward, her small hand sliding into his. "Lyra," he said softly, testing the name he'd given her. "Do you like that?" "Lyra?" She repeated the sound, voice high and musical, and something in her expression brightened. Their touch sent another pulse of emotion through him, curiosity, gratitude, an echo of his own fear and longing. Eli set the computer to analyze her DNA. While it processed, he sat beside Lyra, whispering gentle words, telling her about stars and stories and the promise of safety. She watched him, entranced, her fur patterns glimmering in hues he'd never seen. When the results appeared, Eli stared in disbelief. Genetic markers of the Selenian royal line, impossible, forbidden. Selenians of the royal blood were never to leave their homeworld. Harboring her was not just dangerous, it was a crime of the highest order. An alert flashed on his terminal. Emissary Ceres, Selenian Regent, had arrived. Lyra's fur patterns surged with panic. She tried to rise, clutching his arm, pleading with her eyes. "Shh, Lyra, it's all right," Eli whispered, heartbreaking. He opened a shielded compartment, guiding her inside, tucking her in as if she were the most precious thing in the universe. "I'll protect you. I promise." She pressed her forehead to his, fur warm and soft, the psychic bond between them deepening, a tangle of trust, longing, and desperate hope. Eli closed the compartment, resting his hand on the cool metal. He knew he had crossed a line from which there was no turning back. The reception chamber had been hastily prepared for the emissary's arrival. Stark lights glared down on mismatched chairs, the faint tang of ozone in the recycled air. Eli lingered near the bulkhead, fatigue weighing on his limbs, mind racing with worry for Lyra hidden in his lab's shielded compartment. Officer Brandt's voice broke through the hum of nervous whispers. "Dr. Winters, step forward." Eli straightened, forcing his expression into something neutral as the far door hissed open. Emissary Ceres entered, flanked by two armored Selenians whose towering forms seemed to draw every eye in the chamber. Their silver fur shimmered, shifting with subtle hues, patterns nearly identical to Lyra's, but their eyes were sharper, wary, and full of purpose. Ceres herself was striking, regal, elegant, her posture betraying no uncertainty. The room stilled as she spoke, her voice musical yet edged with command. "I am not here for lost property," she announced, gaze sweeping over the assembled staff. "I seek my kin, my ward, Lyra, missing since the attack en route to Perseid. If any have seen or aided her, speak now." The name struck Eli like a bolt of cold lightning. He caught his breath, willing himself not to glance toward the corridor that led to his lab. Ceres's gaze swept over the group, lingering on Eli for a fraction longer than the others. Brant stepped forward. "We're cooperating fully, emissary. Our logs show no unauthorized personnel in the last cycle." "Then perhaps someone has concealed her," Ceres replied, her tone gentle but unyielding. She questioned each staff member in turn, her words measured, but Eli sensed tension beneath the surface. When she reached him, her eyes narrowed. "Dr. Winters, you oversee xenobiology, do you not?" "I do," he answered, careful to keep his voice steady. "I've treated many species during my tenure here, some Selenian morphids, but none matching your description." A flicker of intrigue passed over her face. "And yet, your reputation is for noticing what others miss. If you were to find someone wounded and alone, would you help them?" Eli hesitated only a moment. "I help anyone in need. It's my duty." A Selenian guard stepped forward, holding a scanner. "We detected Selenian blood traces near the lab's emissary." All eyes shifted to Eli. Brant's tone hardened. "Care to explain that, Doctor?" Eli steadied himself, heart pounding. "We sometimes run genetic analyses on unidentified specimens. There are traces from archived samples. Nothing recent." Ceres regarded him, silver eyes narrowing in assessment. "Doctor, might I speak with you privately?" Brant frowned but nodded. "Fine, you have 10 minutes." Ceres dismissed her entourage with a flick of her hand. As the doors hissed shut, her regal composure slipped. She closed the distance between them, urgency cracking her calm. "Where is Lyra?" she demanded, voice trembling with genuine worry. "I felt her pain. I know she is here. Please, if you have her." Eli lifted his hands, voice low. "She was near death when I found her. Someone meant to kill her emissary. I did everything I could to save her." Ceres's relief was raw, washing across her features like a storm breaking. She pressed a hand to her chest, shoulders shaking with exhaled tension. "Thank the stars. Is she safe?" "For now," Eli replied, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "But not all on this station can be trusted. There was an attempted infiltration during lockdown. Station guards questioned me about cargo. I believe Lyra was the real target." Ceres's jaw tightened. "Some of my own guards are divided in loyalty. There are those who would do anything for power, even betray the royal line. You and I, we are in grave danger, Doctor." A brief, silent understanding passed between them. Without another word, they slipped through the service corridors, Eli leading the way with practiced caution. Ceres's presence was a palpable force behind him, a ripple of psychic energy pressing at the edges of his mind. They reached the lab in silence, Eli keying in the security override with shaking fingers. Inside, Lyra lay curled in the shielded compartment, her breathing shallow but steady. As the door opened, her eyes fluttered open, meeting Ceres's with an intensity that made Eli's chest ache. Ceres knelt beside her, murmuring in their native tongue, her voice trembling with relief. Lyra responded in kind, her fingers reaching for Ceres's hand, the silver patterns in their fur flickering in harmony. Eli busied himself checking Lyra's vitals, but Ceres's gaze lingered on him. You cared for her as one of your own. I couldn't do otherwise, Eli replied softly. She's more than just a patient. I felt. He hesitated, searching for the words. I felt her pain, even before you arrived. Ceres's lips curled in a faint, knowing smile. The Selenian bond. It is rare between our kind and yours, but not impossible. It allows us to sense the pain and location of those we are linked to. Family, sometimes more. She settled on the floor beside Lyra, her presence radiating calm. When Lyra vanished, the bond was nearly severed. I have never been so afraid. Eli drew up a stool, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. I know something about fear, about loneliness too. Helios isn't exactly a social paradise. Ceres's eyes softened. Isolated by choice or by necessity? A bit of both, Eli admitted, glancing at the faded photos tacked to his wall. Alien landscapes, a few human faces. I came here for the research, stayed because I realized I belonged among mysteries, not people. At least, not most people. Ceres gave a soft, rueful laugh. Leadership means endless isolation. Every ally is also a potential enemy. My predecessor, my sister, died in what was called an accident, but I have never believed it. Eli's voice was gentle. That's a heavy burden to carry. She looked at him then, eyes vulnerable. It is. Some days I wonder if anyone sees Ceres the person, not the Regent. He hesitated, then said quietly, I do. For a long moment silence stretched between them, warm and unhurried. Together they worked, checking Lyra's bandages, recalibrating the containment shield, even sharing quiet stories. Ceres recounted tales of her childhood on the Selenian homeworld, of nights under violet moons, and Eli spoke of his fascination with life's resilience in the harshest environments. Their bond grew in the small moments, the brush of hands as they adjusted a monitor, the way Ceres steadied Eli when his strength faltered, her silvery voice murmuring his name like a secret. On the fourth night, exhaustion finally caught up with Eli. He slumped against the counter, lids drooping. Ceres caught him, her hand lingering on his as she guided him to a chair. Rest, Eli, she whispered, his name soft and musical. He looked up at her, feeling the invisible thread between them tighten. Not until I know you're both safe. She smiled, sadness and hope mingling in her gaze. We will be, as long as we stand together. The moment stretched, her face inches from his, her fingers warm against his skin. Then the world shattered. The lab door burst open, a plume of acrid smoke billowing in. Shouts rang out, weapons drawn. Men in station guard uniforms stormed inside, but their faces were wrong. Eyes cold, movements too precise. Down! Eli shouted, grabbing Ceres and pushing her behind the exam table. A tranquilizer dart thunked into the wall where her head had been. Eli snatched up a tray, flinging vials across the room, shattering them in a haze of chemicals. The assassins pressed forward, one aiming at Lyra. Not her! Ceres roared, surging up. She tackled the attacker, but a shock rod struck her side, electricity crackling through her body. She crumpled, gasping. Rage exploded in Eli's chest. He lunged at the nearest assassin, jabbing a sedative injector into the man's thigh. The attacker collapsed, twitching. Another raised a weapon, but Eli hurled a metal case, knocking him off balance. In the chaos, Lyra crawled to Ceres, her small hands trembling as she tried to shield her guardian. A third assassin leveled a pulse pistol at Eli. He ducked, rolling behind the containment pod. Over here! He shouted, drawing their fire away from the Selenians. Ceres, pale and sweating, dragged herself upright. The same weapon, they used it on Lyra. Poison. Paralytic. engineered for our kind. Eli's mind raced. He yanked open his emergency kit, fingers shaking as he prepared a counteragent, one he'd only theorized about. He injected it into Ceres's arm, praying he hadn't miscalculated. Her breathing slowed, then steadied, color returning to her cheeks. "Stay with me," he murmured, taking her hand. Their psychic connection flared, her trust in him anchoring them both in the storm. The last assassin made a break for the door, but Lyra, eyes blazing, unleashed a psychic pulse that sent the man crashing to the floor. The lab fell silent except for the ragged breaths of the survivors. Ceres's gaze found Eli's, full of gratitude and something deeper. "You saved us both." He squeezed her hand, voice rough. "You trusted me. That's all I needed." She managed a tired smile. "Then we are bound, you and I." They gathered Lyra, wrapped her in a thermal blanket, and packed what little supplies they could carry. Eli checked the corridor, every sense on edge. The threat was far from over, but as Ceres joined him at the threshold, their eyes met. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Eli piloted the battered medical shuttle away from Helios, hands tight on the controls, every nerve alive with the memory of chaos. The comm crackled with Officer Brandt's voice, sharp, demanding, edged with threat. "Dr. Winters, return to Helios immediately. This is your final warning." Eli flicked the comm off, exhaling in a shuddering rush. "Not a chance," he muttered, glancing over his shoulder. The shuttle's cramped quarters had forced them together. Ceres hunched over Lyra, who lay nestled on a cot, her small form swaddled in thermal blankets. Ceres, now dressed in plain station wear, looked nothing like the stately regent who had commanded a room with a single word. She dabbed Lyra's brow, her movements gentle, humming a melody that filled the little vessel with fragile hope. "Her vitals are steadying," Eli said softly, scanning the monitors. Ceres nodded, brushing a silver strand of hair behind her ear. "She's stronger than she looks. I am grateful, Eli, for everything." He smiled, the tension between them thinning in the hush of the shuttle's engine. "We're not out of danger yet, but we're together. That's a start." The days fell into a quiet rhythm. Eli charted a winding course through unmapped sectors, evading pursuit, while Ceres devoted herself to Lyra's recovery. They shared the small galley, their knees brushing as they ate. They took turns reading to Lyra from an old data slate, their voices weaving comfort. Somewhere between the routine of care and the silence of deep space, a new kind of closeness took root. Quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. Ceres's formal bearing faded as the hours passed. She grew curious, her questions gentle and searching. One evening, as Eli adjusted the med scanner, she sat beside him, her gaze open. "Why did you choose Helios, Eli? Why a forgotten outpost at the edge of nowhere?" He shrugged, fiddling with a loose wire. "I needed space. After my brother died, I couldn't stand crowded places. Helios was quiet, uncomplicated. Or so I thought." She considered this, head tilted. "You hide from pain in your work. I understand that. My entire life has been sacrifice. Every joy weighed against duty." He looked at her, seeing the exhaustion in her eyes. "Did you ever want something else?" A wistful smile touched her lips. "As a girl, I dreamed of becoming a xenobiologist. I wanted to map new worlds, study life, discover meaning in every pattern. But my bloodline decided otherwise." He laughed, startled. "You? A scientist?" She grinned, softer than he'd ever seen her. "I would have loved your life, even the solitude." He held her gaze, something unspoken simmering in the small distance between them. Later, as he watched her tend to Lyra, singing ancient Selenian melodies that curled through the cabin like a benediction, he realized he was seeing Ceres for the first time, The woman beneath the mask. On the third night, the hush of space pressed close. Lyra's neural readings spiked, then plummeted, and Ceres's composure shattered. She's not stabilizing. Her mind, her bond is... Ceres's voice broke. She pressed trembling hands to her face, silver fur glimmering with distress. Eli crossed the narrow cabin, kneeling beside her. Ceres. Hey, look at me. She did. Tears bright in her eyes. If I lose her, I lose everything. She is all I have left of my sister. Of our line. He took her hands, warmth flooding through his palms. You're not alone. Not anymore. She shuddered, leaning into him, the last of her regal armor falling away. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as she wept, her tears soaking into his shirt. I feel safe with you, Eli, she whispered, voice ragged. I have never felt this peace, not with anyone. He brushed her cheek with his thumb, hesitant. Ceres. She looked up, searching his face, her breath mingling with his. May I? Their first kiss was hesitant, a soft brush of lips, warm and sweet. A question and an answer in one. Ceres's fingers curled into his, clinging as though she might drift away in the silence. Lyra stirred, dark eyes opening, watching them with a calm, approving gaze. She reached for Ceres, who drew her close, the three of them entwined in the uncertain hush. In the days that followed, their bond deepened in the shared quiet of the shuttle. Ceres traced the lines of Eli's hand, curious about every difference. He marveled at the psychic resonance that flickered between their palms when they touched. At night, Ceres confided in whispers, her voice trembling with hope. With you, I feel free, Eli. Not a regent or a fugitive, just myself. I had forgotten what that felt like. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. You don't have to be alone anymore. Whatever comes, I'll be here. They explored the joys and challenges of their interspecies connection, each touch a revelation, her fur cool and silken against his skin, his laughter coaxing smiles from places she'd kept hidden for years. They taught each other words in their native tongues, giggling at mispronunciations, finding delight in the smallest things. Sometimes their differences sparked friction, his impatience clashing with her need for caution, her formality brushing up against his irreverence. But every argument ended with a gentle reconciliation, a deeper understanding. By the time they reached Haven's Reach, a ragged outpost orbiting a forgotten moon, they were something more than fugitives or allies. They were a family. The settlement welcomed them with wary curiosity. Eli adopted a new name, Dr. Ellis, quiet medic with a knack for the impossible. Ceres became Celine, cultural advisor to the growing population of exiles. Lyra, her health restored, darted through the streets with other children, her laughter a beacon in the cold. In the clinic, Eli found purpose again. He stitched wounds, set bones, delivered infants of species he'd never before seen. In the evenings, he returned to their shared quarters, where Ceres waited with stories and questions. They built a life out of the fragments of exile, a life of shared meals, whispered jokes, and midnight dances beneath flickering lights. Sometimes the past crept in. Ceres would sit by the window, gaze fixed on the swirling nebulae, news feeds flickering across her slate. She tracked the fate of her people, watched as her cousin Varric's grip on the Selenian throne tightened, saw old allies disappear from public life. One night, under Haven's twin moons, Ceres stood on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, her silver fur shimmering in the pale light. Eli joined her, slipping his arms around her waist. "You're quiet tonight," he murmured. She leaned into him, sighing. Varric grows stronger. Every day his lies root deeper. I watch from afar while my people suffer. He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. You did what you had to do. I left them, she whispered. I ran when I should have fought. I am their regent, Eli, their hope. He turned her gently to face him. You saved Lyra. You survived. That was brave. She shook her head. Tears bright in her eyes. I want to return. I want to free them. To show them hope is not lost. He searched her face, seeing the resolve burning there. Then we'll go back. Together. She blinked, startled. You would risk that? For me? He smiled, brushing her hair from her face. For you. For Lyra. For anyone who needs us. I promised I'd stand by you. I meant it. Ceres rested her forehead against his, the psychic bond flaring between them, a promise, silent and unbreakable. In the hush beneath the twin moons, Eli held her close, knowing whatever dangers lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Their peace shattered at dawn. A coded alert pinged through the walls of their rented room. 3 staccato pulses, 1 long, then silence. Eli snapped awake, heart hammering. Ceres was already moving, pale light catching on her silver fur as she checked the terminal. The message was clear. Varroc's forces had found them. We have to go. Now, she whispered, her voice stripped to its core. Eli nodded, scooping Lyra into his arms. She clung to him, sensing the tension in the air. They left everything but a battered medkit and the forged credentials tucked inside Ceres's cloak. Outside, the settlement's morning bustle had yet to begin. Their shadows merged as they hurried down back alleys, each step echoing the end of their brief sanctuary. Behind the recycling depot, they found their only escape, a waste hauler, its cargo bay yawning open. The reek of processed refuse hit Eli like a wall, but Ceres pressed his hand, eyes fierce with urgency. In. Quickly. I'll cover us. They clambered inside, burying themselves beneath tarps and battered crates. Lyra whimpered. Eli stroked her fur, whispering nonsense to calm her. Through a crack, he watched Ceres disable the security sensors with practiced hands. She ducked in beside them just as the hauler's engines rumbled to life. For hours they rattled through the void, every bump and jolt a reminder of how far they had fallen. The journey was a patchwork of fear and endurance, ducking patrols, stowing away in the darkest corners of transport ships, bartering passage with what little they had. More than once, Eli's skills saved them. A broken ankle set in a cargo bay, a wound stitched shut with scavenged thread, a sleeping guard left undisturbed thanks to a carefully administered sedative. At every port, Ceres's network of allies shrank. Messages went unanswered, safe houses were burned. Varroc's regime grew crueler, broadcasts full of disappearances and public trials. The Selenian worlds, once vibrant with trade and voices, were closing in on themselves, smothered by fear. One night, huddled in the hold of a decrepit shuttle, Eli found Ceres staring into the dark, her hands shaking. "Are you cold?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "No, just tired. Each day, more doors close. I thought I had friends in every sector. Now, I trust only you." He squeezed her hand. "We'll find a way, Ceres. We always do." Her eyes shone with gratitude, and something else. "You give me hope, Eli, even when I have none left for myself." Their journey became a test of endurance and trust. Sometimes they argued, Eli reckless, desperate to keep moving, Ceres cautious, planning every step. But always they reconciled, each day binding them closer. Lyra, sensing the strain, stayed near them both, her silent presence a reminder of all they fought for. Eventually, their luck ran out. In the shadow of a dead relay hub, they were cornered. The alarm started as a low drone, rising to a shriek as armored figures stormed their hiding place. Eli's pulse spiked as he shoved Ceres and Lyra behind an overturned console. "Stay down," he hissed. Heavy boots pounded the deck. Blasters flashed. Eli braced for the worst, then saw the insignia on the lead attacker's shoulder, a spiral of stars edged in gold. "Cirrus," he whispered. "Look." She peeked out, her breath catching. "That's Mira's mark, my mentor's loyalists." The armored figures swept the room, weapons ready, but their leader, a tall Selenian with silver-gold fur, lowered her helmet, revealing sharp, kind eyes. "Regent Cirrus, it's Captain Mira. We're here to help." Relief crashed through Eli. He lowered his makeshift weapon, rising slowly. Cirrus stood, regal despite exhaustion. "Captain, you found us." Mira nodded, her gaze flicking to Eli and Lyra. "It's not safe here. Come. Shadowstar awaits." They hurried aboard the resistance ship, Shadowstar. The vessel was a lifeline, corridors pulsing with energy, filled with exiles and warriors loyal to the old ways. For the first time in months, Sarah straightened to her full height, her authority returning. In the briefing room, she addressed her followers, her voice steady, her words a beacon in the gloom. "Varek's tyranny cannot endure. We have suffered, but we are not broken. Today, we rise together." Applause and cheers echoed. Eli, standing awkwardly at the edge, felt the sharp divide between himself and the Selenians. He was an outsider, human, unknown, a medic among warriors. Doubt gnawed at him as he watched Ceres command the room, her every gesture radiating purpose. Later, as the lights dimmed and plans were drawn, Ceres found him in the medbay, where he cleaned his hands and tried to look useful. "You seem distant," she murmured, sliding onto the counter beside him. He shook his head. "This is your world, Ceres. Your fight. I don't know where I fit anymore." She reached for his hand, her touch warm and grounding. "You are more than you know, Eli. You saved us both. You gave me the strength to keep fighting." He met her gaze, the depth of her affection unmistakable. "I only wanted you safe." "And you made me believe we could be," she replied, voice low. Together they joined Captain Mira and the other resistance leaders, their heads bent over star maps and encrypted messages. They needed a way into the capital, a miracle. It was Eli who suggested the impossible. "What if we create a medical emergency?" he said. "Something non-lethal but contagious. A pathogen that spreads just enough to require intervention. You and I could pose as specialists, get inside the palace, and reach Varek." Ceres's eyes widened. "That could work. We have contacts in the capital's health council. They'd demand outside experts." Mira nodded, grimly impressed. "Can you engineer something safe, Doctor?" Eli nodded, determination kindling. "It'll take time and a well-equipped lab, but yes, I'll make sure it's harmless." The plan took shape. Eli worked late into the cycle, devising a synthetic pathogen that would cause mild symptoms, fever, fatigue, easily treated. Ceres used her knowledge of palace protocol, crafting their new identities and covering their digital tracks. Their partnership, born of desperation, shaped by love, became the Resistance's greatest asset. On the eve of their infiltration, Ceres found Eli on the observation deck, gazing at the planet below, a swirl of green and gold beneath the stars. She approached quietly, her presence a soothing balm. "Are you afraid?" she asked. He nodded, terrified. "But I'd do it again, for you." She smiled, reaching up to press her forehead to his, a gesture that carried all the tenderness of a promise, a Selenian intimacy that transcended words. "Help me save my people," she whispered, her voice trembling with hope and longing. Eli closed his eyes, the warmth of her touch anchoring him. "I will. I promise." Once an outcast, he now stood ready to change the fate of a world, for love. The medical shuttle descended to Selenia Prime, hull streaked with warning sigils and pulsating red quarantine lights. As the vessel broke through clouds, Eli's heart hammered in his chest. He tugged at the collar of his sterile suit, the material slick and unfamiliar against his skin. Beside him, Sarah's transformed by disguise and posture, adjusted her own mask, her gaze flinty with purpose. "Remember," she whispered, voice muffled beneath her breath screen. "Protocol is everything. We are interstellar health envoys. No one dares interfere." Eli nodded, clutching the case containing their fabricated test kits and carefully engineered pathogen. "Let's hope they're more afraid of infection than us." The landing platform was swarming with security drones and nervous guards, all bristling with weapons and suspicion. The moment the shuttle doors hissed open, Eli stepped forward, voice authoritative. "Quarantine level 6, no contact. Where's your medical liaison?" he barked, holding up forged credentials. The chief guard flinched. We were told to expect you, Dr. Halden. Follow me, quickly." Inside the palace, the facade of grandeur crumbled. Corridors once gleaming with crystal and gold now echoed with the coughs and groans of the sick. Makeshift triage units lined the walls. Selenians, old and young, shivered beneath emergency blankets, their silver fur dulled by fever. Saris's jaw clenched as she took it in. "This is Varek's doing," she murmured, rage simmering beneath her calm. They passed through layer after layer of security, the fabricated outbreak working in their favor. Eli watched the guards shrink from him, recoiling from the threat of contagion. In the control wing, Saris's true strength emerged. She met the chief administrator's eye, her voice clipped and formal. "We require full access to environmental controls. Under Galactic Emergency Protocol, Section 471, I am authorized to override local authority." The administrator hesitated. "But the council chamber is of no concern," Saris cut in. "Do you wish to be held responsible for containment failure?" The administrator paled. "Of course not. This way." As soon as they were alone, Saris slipped her hand into Eli's, squeezing tight. "You're doing well," she whispered. "Just a little longer." They rendezvoused with Captain Mira's disguised loyalists, engineers, servants, and even a few guards who had switched allegiances. The plan was set in motion. Use the palace's systems to broadcast the uprising signal, then move on the council chamber and invoke the ancient rite of challenge. Mira, dressed in the gray tunic of a palace medic, pressed a comm unit into Eli's palm. "The moment you trigger the alarm, we strike. We'll hold the corridors, but you and Saris must reach the chamber. Varek will not yield unless forced." Eli nodded grimly. "Understood." Security was tighter as they approached the inner sanctum. Saris staggered, clutching her side, her face drawn with feigned illness. Eli slipped an arm around her, supporting her weight. The guards recoiled, unwilling to risk exposure. "She needs the medbay. Stat!" Eli barked, voice slicing through their doubt. One guard reached for a scanner. "Identification." Eli pressed a hypo to the guard's neck, the nerve agent acting instantly. The man crumpled, silent. The second guard tried to shout, but Saris felled her with a swift, practiced blow. They moved quickly, ducking into the palace's nerve center. Eli set to work at the console, fingers flying over unfamiliar glyphs. Saris relayed the codes, overriding the alarms. He found the broadcast frequency, heart pounding, and sent the signal, a 3-tone pulse that echoed through the palace's communication grid. Suddenly, alarms blared. The doors locked with a thunderous clang. On the security feed, red-armored soldiers rushed the halls, Mira's resistance fighters surging to meet them. "We're out of time," Saris said, eyes blazing. "We go now." They fought their way through the palace, every corridor a battlefield. Eli's medical knowledge became his weapon. He disabled guards with tranquilizers, sealed wounds on fallen allies, and improvised barricades from medcarts and supply cabinets. Saris moved like a force of nature, issuing commands, guiding the loyalists, her presence galvanizing the fighters around her. At last, they reached the council chamber, a vast, echoing space lined with crystalline columns. The air vibrated with tension and the acrid scent of energy discharge. Captain Mira stood at the center, wounded but resolute, blood trickling down her arm. Varek waited on the dais, his pale hair wild, eyes glittering with desperation. He clutched a stunner in one hand and a ceremonial blade in the other. Around him, a handful of counselors cowered, their loyalty uncertain. "End this, Varek," Saris called, stepping into the light. "Surrender and face the right, or let the council judge your crimes." Varek's laugh was brittle. "You're too late, cousin. I control this palace. One word and your allies die." He gestured, and guards dragged a group of prisoners into view, resistance members, bruised but defiant. "You want the throne? Watch your friends die for it." Eli caught Saris's eye, searching for an opening. She stepped forward, swaying as if weak. He held her, steadying her with one arm, and in that charged silence, she turned and kissed him, fierce, defiant, a promise forged in fire. "Go," she whispered against his lips. "Create the diversion. I'll face him." He nodded, heart aching, and slipped along the chamber's edge, palming a vial of knockout gas. As he moved, he hurled the vial at the guards. The gas erupted in a silent cloud. The guards collapsed, leaving only Varek standing. Saris drew herself up to her full height, silver fur rippling with power. "I invoke the ancient right of challenge. By council law, you must answer." Varek snarled, lunging at her with blade flashing, the stunner flickering in his other hand. Saris dodged, parrying the blade with a ceremonial staff. They circled, trading blows, every strike echoing through the chamber. Varek's rage was unrestrained. Saris, focused, moved with the precision of memory and pain. Eli, seeing Varek draw the stunner to fire at Saris's unprotected back, acted without thinking. He snatched an injector from his medkit and hurled it across the chamber. It struck Varek's hand, the needle plunging deep. Varek screamed, dropping both weapons. He spun on Eli, spitting venom. "Alien interference! This is an abomination!" Saris silenced him, her voice ringing with authority. "You speak of abomination, but it is you who brought ruin to our people. Eli is my chosen companion. Our bond is sacred, recognized by the oldest laws, and Lyra, last of the royal line, stands with us." Lyra entered, guided by Mira, her eyes calm and steady. She placed her hand in Saris's, her psychic resonance a bright pulse that filled the chamber. "The laws speak only of unity, not of species," Saris declared. "The council must decide. Will we cling to fear or embrace hope?" The counselors, one by one, bowed their heads. Mira stepped forward, raising her voice. "I saw Saris risk all for us, for Selenia. Eli risked all for love. That is the future I choose." With Varek incapacitated, the rebellion's victory was sealed. Loyalists cheered, prisoners freed one another. Eli found Saris in the aftermath, bloodied but unbroken. She pulled him into her arms, her kiss fierce and grateful. Together, Saris and Eli approached the council dais. Saris raised her voice, clear and unyielding. "This is Eli Winters, the one who saved our future. He is my heart, my partner. Let our new era be founded not on fear, but compassion and courage." The assembly bowed, their voices rising in a new anthem, one of hope. As the dawn broke over Selenia Prime, the first light of a new age fell on Eli and Saris, united, unafraid, and triumphant. The aftermath was swift. Varek was imprisoned, stripped of all authority, his face a shadow of the arrogance he once wore. In the days that followed, his supporters were arrested, brought before the council in somber procession. The trials were public and unsparing, each verdict a stone laid in the foundation of a new era. Selenia's capital, for so long haunted by fear and silence, began to stir with cautious hope. Ceres, restored as regent, wasted no time. She walked the marble halls of the palace as if she had never left, her every movement purposeful. She gathered her council, some newly chosen, others returning from exile, and set to work reforming Selenian society. Borders that had once been closed for generations now opened. Delegations from distant worlds arrived, bearing gifts and apologies, seeking peace. Old treaties were rewritten. Ancient feuds ended over shared meals and careful words. In the great square, Ceres addressed her people, her voice carrying across the starlit city. "We will not hide from the galaxy," she declared. "We will heal the wounds of the past and build a future together." Eli watched her from the sidelines, still uncertain in the glare of celebration. He had become a figure of legend overnight, the human healer who had risked everything for a Selenian regent. Some greeted him with awe, others with wary distance. In crowded halls, he felt eyes follow him, their gazes questioning. He did not wear the robes of office or the silvered marks of Selenian kin. He felt the gulf between himself and this world acutely. One afternoon, after a long session advising the medical council, Eli found himself alone in the quiet of the gardens. Lyra appeared at his side, her silver fur gleaming in the sunlight. She slipped her hand into his, her presence a balm. "Are you sad?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. He smiled, ruffling her hair. "Not sad exactly. Just out of place. I'm not like them." Lyra tilted her head, her dark eyes full of wisdom. "You are different. That is why you saved us." He knelt beside her, his own eyes softening. "Thank you, Lyra. I'm glad I found you that day." She beamed, hugging him tight. When Ceres found them later, she smiled at the sight, her ward and her love, together beneath the silver-leaved trees. She reached out, drawing them both close. At court, some voices rose in protest. Old families, clinging to the memory of bloodlines and tradition, challenged Ceres's right to rule beside an off-worlder. Yet Ceres stood firm, her words echoing through the council chamber. "Our future is built not on bloodlines, but on the courage to love beyond boundaries," she said, her gaze never leaving Eli's. "We have suffered enough division. Let us choose unity." The words sparked debate, but also a slow, steady shift. Younger Selenians, raised on stories of isolation, now saw Ceres and Eli as a living promise, proof that the old walls could fall, that a new path was possible. Lyra, always at their side, became the beating heart of the new Selenia. Her laughter in the halls was a song of renewal, her story a bridge between worlds, their days blurred with meetings, plans, and the endless work of rebuilding. Ceres met with planetary governors, negotiated trade deals, and oversaw the restoration of war-torn provinces. Eli spent his hours in clinics and research labs, training Selenian healers and developing treatments for wounds left by years of neglect. At times, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them both. But at night, when the palace lights dimmed and silence settled over the city, they found each other. In the quiet of Ceres's private chambers, they shed the burdens of their roles. She taught him Selenian poetry, tracing the script across his palm with her fingertips. He told her stories of distant Earth, his laughter filling the spaces between her careful words. One evening, as a storm rumbled outside, Eli lay beside Ceres on a silken couch, her head tucked beneath his chin. He stroked her fur, breathing in her scent, feeling the old ache of loneliness recede. "Did you ever think we'd have this?" he asked softly. Ceres smiled, her voice gentle. "No. I thought my life would be duty and sorrow and nothing more. But you restored my heart, Eli. You gave me hope, when I had none. He pressed a kiss to her brow. You healed me too. As weeks passed, their romance, once whispered, now open, became a symbol of possibility. There were moments of difficulty. Not all were quick to accept change. Some nights, Eli returned to their quarters with the weight of harsh words and wary glances on his shoulders. Ceres would draw him close, her embrace a shield. You belong here, she would insist, her voice fierce. They will see, in time. He nodded, trusting her strength. In turn, he taught her to laugh at her own mistakes, to see the absurdity in the pomp and ritual of court life. They played games with Lyra in the gardens, danced to strange earth music, and built a home from the pieces of two worlds. One night, Ceres led Eli through the palace, her hand warm in his. The moon hung low over the gardens, casting the silver trees in soft blue light. She paused beneath an ancient arch, her eyes luminous. Come with me, she whispered. They wandered the moonlit paths in silence, the scent of flowering vines thick in the air. Ceres stopped at the heart of the garden, where a small fountain bubbled beneath a canopy of silver-green leaves. You restored my heart, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. She pressed her forehead to his, a gesture of Selenian intimacy and trust. Now, let's heal our world together. Eli felt the depth of her promise, the certainty of her love. He cupped her face, his words soft but unbreakable. For as long as I breathe. Whatever comes, I'm with you. Together, they ruled, a regent and a healer, Selenian and human, partners in every sense. Lyra was never far, her presence a reminder of all they had gained and all they still stood to protect. She grew into a symbol of unity, her story woven into songs and stories that spread across the planet. There were challenges. New threats arose, and the old wounds of isolation took time to mend. But Eli and Ceres faced each trial with courage, their love a beacon in the uncertainty. Their partnership inspired others, alliances flourished, new friendships blossomed, and Selenia Prime became a crossroads for worlds once divided. Over time, their story became legend. Children in the capital acted out the tale of the healer and the ruler. Poets sang of the love that bridged the stars. Envoys from across the galaxy came to witness the unity forged in the fires of rebellion and compassion. And beneath Selenia's endless sky, where silver leaves shimmered in the moonlight and laughter echoed through the gardens, Eli and Ceres found not just survival, but a future built on trust, unity, and a love that transcended every barrier. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.